I'm Elena, and this is the story of how losing everything taught me that sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud, it's invisible. When my business partner and fiancé thought they could erase me from the fashion empire I built with my own hands, they made one critical mistake. They forgot that I wasn't just the woman behind the money. I was the architect of their entire world. And architects know exactly where to place the charges to bring everything down. The champagne bubbles caught the light from the crystal chandeliers as I stood in the penthouse overlooking Manhattan's garment district. Our fashion house, Meridian Couture, occupied 3 floors below, but tonight felt different. Tonight, I was about to discover that my fairy tale was built on quicksand. Julian moved through our engagement party with practiced charm, his arm possessing each guest like he owned them. At 35, he was everything fashion magazines wanted in a creative director: sharp jawline, perfectly tousled dark hair, and eyes that could sell dreams to cynics. Those same eyes that had convinced me to invest my trust fund into his vision 3 years ago. "Elena, darling," he whispered as he passed, squeezing my waist. "You look stunning. That Meridian piece was made for you." I smiled, touching the emerald silk dress that bore our label. Our label. The reminder tasted bitter now, but I kept my expression warm. "Thank you. It's amazing what we've built together." "What I've built," he corrected with a laugh that only I could hear. "You just made it possible." The words hit like ice water, but I maintained my smile. Around us, fashion editors, buyers, and influencers mingled, all eager to be part of Julian's empire. They saw the successful creative director and his wealthy fiancé, a perfect power couple in the ruthless world of high fashion. What they didn't see was the woman who had spent 18 months in fashion design school before her parents died, who understood fabric construction, pattern making, and brand positioning better than most industry veterans. She had quietly guided every major decision while Julian took credit for her insights. That night, as Julian charmed investors with stories of his creative genius, I excused myself to use the bathroom. But instead of heading upstairs, I slipped into his home office. I needed to check something that had been nagging at me for weeks. His computer was still logged in, arrogant as always. I opened the email application and searched for correspondence with Celine Morris, our head of design. What I found made my blood freeze. "Julian, the collection is ready for the Milan presentation. Make sure Elena doesn't see the final designs before we reveal them." Celine. Understood. She still thinks she's a creative director? Julian, let her think whatever keeps her writing checks. After Milan, we'll restructure. I'm thinking a more streamlined leadership approach. Celine, what about the engagement? Julian, temporary. I need her money for the European expansion, then I can make other arrangements. I screenshotted everything, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Then I saw the folder labeled Exit Strategy, hundreds of emails detailing how Julian planned to dilute my ownership, transfer assets to shell companies, and ultimately remove me from the business I'd funded with my parents' legacy. The most devastating part? He'd been planning this since month 6 of our relationship. Every "I love you," every romantic dinner, every moment I thought we were building something together, it was all strategic manipulation. I closed the computer and returned to the party, wearing the same smile I'd practiced in mirrors since childhood. Julian was holding court near the windows, gesturing dramatically as he described his vision for Meridian's future. "Elena." He pulled me close as I approached. "I was just telling the Vogue team about our Milan presentation next month. It's going to revolutionize how people think about sustainable luxury. Our Milan presentation. Our vision. Our revolution." I nodded enthusiastically. "I can't wait to see what you've created." But in my mind, I was already creating something else entirely. A plan that would teach Julian that the biggest mistake you can make is betraying someone who funded your dreams. Because dreamers who lose everything have nothing left to lose. The next morning, while Julian slept off his champagne hangover, I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from our office building with my laptop and a legal pad. I looked like any other New Yorker catching up on work, but I was actually conducting a forensic audit of my own company. My background wasn't just in fashion. I'd double majored in business and design at Parsons. While Julian focused on the creative romance of fashion, I understood the financial mechanics that kept brands alive. And right now, those mechanics were telling me a story that made my stomach churn. Over the past year, there had been a series of consulting payments to Apex Creative Solutions, a company I'd never heard of. Each payment was just under the threshold that would require my approval as a major stakeholder. Clever. I spent 3 hours tracing the paper trail. Apex Creative Solutions was registered in Delaware with a single listed owner, Celine Morris. Our head of design wasn't just helping Julian plan my creative downfall, she was literally being paid from company funds I'd provided. But that was just the beginning. I discovered that Julian had been systematically moving our most valuable assets, trademark registrations, fabric supplier contracts, key employee agreements, into a separate entity called Nova Fashion Holdings. Again, registered in Delaware. Again, with management I'd never approve. By lunch, I had evidence of at least $400,000 in unauthorized transactions. By evening, I'd traced connections to 3 other shell companies and found emails discussing something called Project Refresh, which appeared to be Julian's code name for erasing me from Meridian entirely. Instead of confronting him immediately, I made a different choice. I called my attorney. Elena Chin speaking, I said when Miranda Sullivan answered. We'd gone to Parsons together, but while I'd pursued fashion, she'd specialized in corporate law with a focus on partnership disputes. Elena? It's been forever. What's going on? I need to hire you. Can we meet tomorrow morning? And Miranda, bring everything you know about piercing corporate veils and asset recovery. That night, Julian came home with roses and a bottle of Dom Perignon. To celebrate our engagement party success, he said, pulling me into a kiss. Everyone's talking about Milan. This is going to change everything for us. I smiled and accepted the champagne, all while mentally cataloging every lie in his words. Change everything for us. He wasn't wrong about that part. Miranda's office was all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling law books, the kind of space that commanded respect and discouraged bullshit. I spread my evidence across her conference table like a general planning a campaign. Holy shit, Elena. She whistled low as she reviewed the financial records. This isn't just infidelity. This is systematic corporate fraud. How bad is it legally? For him? Federal charges are bad. Wire fraud, money laundering, breach of fiduciary duty, the works. You've been incredibly thorough. I'd spent 2 weeks documenting everything while maintaining my role as the oblivious, love-struck fiancé. Julian had no idea that every late night he spent at the office with Celine was a night I spent building his legal coffin. What's our best move? Miranda leaned back in her chair. We have several options. We could go to the authorities immediately, freeze the assets, and watch him burn. Or we could let him finish digging his grave. If he's planning to debut this stolen collection in Milan, he'll be doing it with international buyers present. That's a bigger stage for his downfall, and it gives us time to recover everything he's hidden. I thought about Julian's arrogance, his absolute certainty that I was too naive to catch him. Let's let him dig deeper. But I want to be ready for war. Over the next 3 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. By day, I played the supportive fiancé, attending fabric meetings and nodding approvingly at Julian's creative decisions, many of which were actually my own ideas from months earlier. By night, I worked with Miranda and a forensic accountant to map every fraudulent transaction. We discovered that Julian's plan was even more elaborate than I'd initially thought. He intended to debut his Milan collection, use the buzz to secure a massive European investment, then claim that our original partnership agreement was invalid due to creative differences. The European money would buy out my stake at a fraction of its true value, leaving him with complete control and me with nothing. It was brilliant, actually. If I had been the naive trust fund princess he thought I was. But I wasn't naive. I was furious. And fury, when channeled correctly, becomes laser-focused precision. Milan Fashion Week approached like a storm on the horizon. Julian's excitement was palpable. He'd been describing this as his breakthrough moment to anyone who would listen. Our collection, which he now called Metamorphosis, was inspired by the transformation of hidden potential into visible beauty. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 days before we left for Milan, I made a move that would seem innocent to anyone watching. I sent a congratulatory email to the entire Meridian team, thanking them for their hard work and expressing my pride in our collaborative vision. What Julian didn't know was that the email contained a subtle request for team members to send me their favorite memories of the creative process and to include any behind-the-scenes photos or videos they'd captured during development. The responses were illuminating. Our junior designers had been documenting everything, creating content for our social media channels. What they'd captured inadvertently was a complete record of the design process, including countless instances of me providing creative direction that Julian later claimed as his own inspiration. I now had video evidence of the true creative process behind our collection. But I wasn't done. I also reached out to our fabric suppliers, ostensibly to express gratitude for their partnership. In those conversations, I learned that Julian had been negotiating exclusive deals with several suppliers, deals that would lock Meridian into long-term contracts that I'd never approved. More evidence. More ammunition. The night before our flight to Milan, Julian was unusually affectionate. "I know I've been distracted lately," he said, stroking my hair as we lay in bed. "But after Milan, things will be different. Better." Different how? Less stress. More time for us. Maybe we can finally plan that wedding you've been wanting. I nestled closer, hiding my face so he couldn't see my expression. That sounds wonderful. But what I was really thinking was, you have no idea how different things are about to become. The Meridian showroom in Milan was everything Julian had dreamed of: elegant, sophisticated, and crawling with industry elite. Buyers from Bergdorf Goodman, Harrods, and Galeries Lafayette moved through the space like fashion vultures, assessing our collection with calculating eyes. Julian was in his element, gliding from group to group with practiced charm. I watched him describe the inspiration behind each piece, inspiration that had actually come from my late-night sketches and our collaborative brainstorming sessions that he now remembered as his solo genius. The emerald evening gown represents the moment when a woman realizes her true power, he told a group of buyers, gesturing to the centerpiece of our collection. It came to me in a dream. I remembered the real origin of that dress. It had been my response to his comment that I looked too innocent for Fashion Week parties. I designed it to feel like armor wrapped in silk. Now he was selling it as his vision of feminine empowerment. Strategic subscription prompt at 10-minute mark. If this journey has electrified your imagination and you're craving more mind-bending stories that challenge everything you know, smash that subscribe button now. Your next reality-altering adventure is waiting, and you do not want to miss it. As the presentation reached its climax, Julian announced the collection's piece de resistance, a series of sustainable luxury pieces that incorporated innovative recycling techniques I developed during my graduate studies. "This represents the future of fashion," he declared to the assembled crowd. "Beauty with conscience. Luxury with responsibility." I watched from the back of the room, my phone recording everything, every claim of sole creative credit. Every stolen idea was presented as his breakthrough innovation. But the real show was about to begin. During the networking dinner that followed, I approached Paolo Benedetti, the fashion director of Italian Vogue, whom I'd met during a previous Milan trip. "Elena, bellissima, as always. Julian's collection is extraordinary." "Thank you, Paolo. It's been such a collaborative process." Actually, I was wondering if you might be interested in an exclusive behind-the-scenes story about the creative development. I have some fascinating documentation. Paolo's eyes lit up. Fashion journalism thrived on insider access and untold stories. Absolutely. What kind of documentation? I showed him a brief video clip on my phone, footage from our design studio showing me sketching the emerald gown while Julian watched and took notes. Paolo's expression shifted immediately. He was a veteran of fashion politics and recognized the implications instantly. This is interesting. When would you like to discuss this further? Tomorrow morning? I think it's time people understood the full story behind Meridian's success. The next morning, while Julian met with potential European investors, I sat in Paolo's hotel suite with Miranda, who had flown in overnight with additional evidence. Paolo had brought his senior fashion reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Francesca who specialized in industry exposés. "Let me understand this correctly," Francesca said, reviewing the financial documents. "Julian has been systematically stealing your creative work while also embezzling company funds and planning to force me out of the company I funded," I added. "The European investment he's negotiating today is intended to dilute my ownership to nothing." Paolo shook his head. "In fashion, we see many partnerships go wrong. But this level of deception—" "When can you publish?" Miranda asked. "Tonight," Paolo replied. "This goes beyond fashion politics. This is criminal behavior dressed up as creative ambition." While Paolo and Francesca crafted their exposé, I took care of the other piece of my plan. I called an emergency board meeting for Meridian's investors, the silent partners who had provided additional funding after my initial investment. Elena, David Kim, our largest investor after me, sounded surprised. "Isn't Julian handling the Milan meetings?" "That's exactly what I need to discuss with you. Can you arrange a video conference with the other board members in 2 hours? I have some urgent information about Julian's management of company assets." By evening, the fashion world was buzzing. Paolo's article, titled "The Hidden Hand Behind Meridian's Success," had gone viral across fashion media. The story included video evidence of my creative process, financial documentation of Julian's fraud, and interviews with team members who confirmed my role in developing the collection. But more importantly, it revealed Julian's plan to steal everything from the woman who had made his success possible. I was having dinner alone when Julian burst into the restaurant, his face red with rage and panic. "You bitch," he hissed, sliding into the seat across from me. "You've destroyed everything." I calmly set down my wine glass. "No, Julian. You destroyed everything. I just documented it. The investors are pulling out. The buyers are questioning the authenticity of the collection. Italian authorities want to interview me about financial irregularities." "Good. You should definitely be honest with them. It's a new experience for you." His hands shook as he leaned forward. "Elena, we can fix this. It's all a misunderstanding. I was protecting the company's interests. By stealing my work and embezzling my money? You don't understand the fashion industry. I had to take creative control to make this work. You're talented, but you're not a leader." I laughed, actually laughed. "Julian, I wasn't just the money behind Meridian. I was the strategy, the vision, and the creative direction. You were just the pretty face I put in front of cameras." The color drained from his face as he realized, perhaps for the first time, that he had never been the genius he thought he was. The aftermath was swift and devastating for Julian. Within 48 hours, Italian authorities had frozen all accounts connected to his shell companies. The European investors withdrew their offers and demanded audits of any companies connected to Julian's name. Celine was terminated and faced her own legal challenges for participating in the embezzlement scheme. But the most satisfying moment came during the emergency board meeting I'd called. Julian sat at the far end of the conference table via video call from Milan, looking like a man who'd watched his entire world collapse in real time. The board members, all successful business people, stared at him with the cold disgust reserved for those who betray trust. "Julian," David Kim began, his voice ice cold. "We've reviewed the evidence Elena provided. The forensic audit confirms systematic fraud totaling over $600,000. There's an explanation for everything," Julian stammered. "I was making strategic decisions to grow the company." "You were stealing," interrupted Sarah Walsh, another investor. "From your fiancé, from your partners, from the company you claim to love." I spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "Julian, you told me once that I didn't understand the fashion industry. You were right about one thing. I didn't understand how someone could claim to love something while systematically destroying it." "Elena, please." "The board has voted," David announced. "You're removed from all positions within Meridian Couture, effective immediately. Your ownership stake is forfeited due to breach of fiduciary duty. Legal action will be pursued for full recovery of stolen assets." Julian's video connection went black. We never heard from him again during official proceedings. 6 months later, I stood in the same penthouse where the story began, but everything had changed. The space was lighter, more open, filled with sketches and fabric samples, and the controlled chaos of genuine creativity. Meridian Couture was not only surviving but thriving under my leadership. Without Julian's need for constant ego-stroking, we'd been able to focus on what actually mattered, creating beautiful clothes that meant something. Our sustainable luxury line had been picked up by every major retailer that had initially been interested in Julian's stolen vision. But now they were investing in the real creator's future work. Celine had been replaced by Marcus Rivera, a brilliant designer who understood that collaboration made everyone stronger. The junior designers who had documented our creative process were promoted to senior positions. The company culture shifted from toxic competition to supportive innovation. Most of the embezzled money was recovered, and Julian faced federal charges for wire fraud and money laundering. He'd pleaded down to 5 years in prison and full restitution. Celine received 2 banishments and a permanent banishment from the fashion industry. But my victory wasn't just about seeing them punished. It was about proving to myself that I was stronger than their betrayal. Miranda visited that evening, bringing champagne and legal documents. "The last of Julian's shell companies has been dissolved," she announced. "Every asset has been returned to Meridian." "You did it, Elena." I looked out at the Manhattan skyline, where millions of lights sparkled like opportunities. "We did it. And now we build something better." "What's next?" "I'm launching a foundation for women who've been erased from their own success stories. Legal support, business mentorship, and creative protection. No one else should have to discover their worth by losing everything." Miranda smiled. "From victim to victor to advocate. I'm proud of you." That night, I found myself thinking about the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, hopeful, willing to subordinate my own vision for someone else's dreams. She wasn't weak or foolish. She was simply someone who believed that love meant lifting others up. She was right about love. She was just wrong about Julian. 1 year after Milan, I received an unexpected letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. "Elena, I know I have no right to contact you. I know nothing I say can undo the damage I caused. But I need you to know that losing you taught me something I was too arrogant to learn before. You were never the silent partner. You were never just the money. You were the heart and soul of everything we built, and I was too threatened by your talent to admit it. I watch Meridian's success from prison. Yes, I see the magazines, the awards, the expansion into sustainable luxury markets. Everything I pretended to be, you actually are. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that destroying our partnership was the biggest mistake of my life, and recognizing your genius was the only thing I ever got right. Julian." I read the letter twice, then placed it in a drawer without responding. Not out of cruelty, but because I'd learned that some chapters close themselves. That evening, I attended the Council of Fashion Designers of America Awards, where Meridian had been nominated for Sustainable Fashion Innovation. I wore the emerald gown, The one Julian had claimed as his dream inspiration, but now it felt like what it had always been. My armor, my power, my declaration that I would not be diminished. When they announced Meridian as the winner, I walked to the stage thinking not about Julian's betrayal, but about my parents, who had taught me that true strength comes from building others up, not tearing them down. This award represents more than sustainable fashion, I said to the audience. It represents the power of authentic collaboration, the importance of crediting true creators, and the courage to rebuild when everything you trusted falls apart. The applause was thunderous, but what mattered most was the young designers in the audience, women who were just starting their own journeys, who would face their own challenges and betrayals. After the ceremony, a young designer approached me. "Miss Chen, your story changed my life. I was in a partnership that was destroying my confidence, and seeing how you fought back gave me the courage to leave. What did you do?" She smiled. "I started my own company. It's small, but it's mine." That conversation reminded me why the pain had been worth it. Not for revenge, not for justice, but for the possibility that my story might help others write better endings to their own. 5 years later, Meridian Couture operates in 12 countries and employs over 300 people. Our sustainable luxury collections are worn by celebrities, world leaders, and everyday women who want to feel powerful in their own skin. But more importantly, the Meridian Foundation has helped 847 women recover from business partnerships that tried to erase their contributions. We've recovered over $23 million in stolen assets and creative rights. We've changed the laws. We've changed lives. Sometimes people ask if I regret trusting Julian, if I wish I'd been more cynical from the start. The answer is no. My willingness to trust, to invest, to believe in shared dreams, those weren't weaknesses. They were strengths that someone unworthy tried to exploit. The problem was never my nature. The problem was his character. Julian taught me something valuable, though not what he intended. He taught me that the most dangerous people are those who see your strengths and try to claim them as their own. But he also taught me that such people can only succeed if you let them. I refuse to let him. Today, I sit in my office overlooking the Hudson River, working on designs for our upcoming collection. On my desk is a photo from last week's company retreat, 300 faces representing every level of our organization, all of them smiling, all of them credited for their contributions. This is what building an empire really looks like. Not one person taking credit for others' work, but a community of creators lifting each other up. Julian tried to erase me from my own story. Instead, he taught me how to write a better ending. And that ending isn't about revenge. It's about resilience. It's about rebuilding. It's about refusing to let someone else's betrayal define your worth. The fashion industry calls me a comeback story. But I know the truth, I never left. I was just learning how to take up the space I'd always deserved. What do you think about Elena's journey from betrayal to empowerment? Have you ever had to rebuild after someone tried to erase your contributions? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the face of betrayal and building something beautiful from the ashes of trust broken. If Elena's story inspired you to fight for what's rightfully yours, hit that like button and ring the notification bell, because your story of resilience could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.